I'm John Cunningham, and welcome to another episode of Small Stocks, Big Money. For those of you new to the show, RedChip Companies is an investor relations, media, and research firm focused on emerging growth companies. Our unique platform combines global multimedia with traditional investor relations, reaching investors around the world. Now, today's show features interviews with executives of two public companies. First up is Genetic Technologies, stock symbol GENE on the NASDAQ. The company is a diversified molecular diagnostic company offering predictive disease testing and assessment tools to help physicians to improve health outcomes for people around the world. We'll learn more when we speak with the CEO later in the show. Next up is BioVie, stock symbol BIVI on the NASDAQ. BioVie is a clinical stage company developing what it believes will be transformative therapies to overcome unmet medical needs in neurodegeneration and liver disease with late-stage programs in Alzheimer's, Parkinsons, and refractory ascites. We'll learn more when we speak with the president and CEO later in the show. Now, before we get to our first interview, our quote of the week. It comes from the book Small Stocks, Big Money. The risk always lies within management, so we're constantly evaluating through our three-part process. We meet with 3 to 5 CEOs and CFOs of small companies in our offices every week. These quotes come from Byron Roth, CEO of Roth Capital, featured in Chapter 7 of Small Stocks, Big Money. This is a book of exclusive interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Get a digital copy on Amazon today for just $18. Quick question. Are you interested in gaining a deeper understanding of the companies featured on Small Stocks, Big Money? If so, be sure to join us for our exclusive investor webinars. This is your opportunity to gain an in-depth look at our featured companies and where you can speak directly to management, giving you tremendous insights straight from the source. Visit redchip.com/events for a full calendar of upcoming webinars and register today to secure your spot at the next event. Now let's get started with our first interview today with Genetic Technologies.
Hello there. Today we have Simon Morris, CEO of Genetic Technologies, which trades on the NASDAQ under the ticker symbol GENE. Simon, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Genetic Technologies is a global leader in genomics-based tests in health, wellness, and serious diseases. Let's start with an overview of the business.
Thanks, Craig. We are a leader in personalized predictive genomics in serious disease. We run 2 different brands. We are in the GeneType brand for serious disease and the EasyDNA brand for direct-to-consumer genomics. We have a presence in about 40 different countries. We look at tests for oncology, cardiovascular, metabolic diseases under the GeneType brand, and paternity, hair and drug and carrier screening under the EasyDNA brand. We have B2B partners in hospitals, specialists, integrative medicine, functional medicine doctors, and we have a direct-to-consumer platform for our EasyDNA brand. In the last 12 months, we've delivered just under $10 million worth of revenue, up 29% on the prior year, up from about $6.8 million in the previous year. So we are poised for some wonderful growth with some wonderful opportunities over the course of the next 18 months. And we've identified the key drivers of revenue that will put us on a pathway to profitability for the future.
Simon, you recently announced a partnership with Gold Coast Hospital to establish a precision medicine clinic. What can you tell us about that new initiative?
Well, this is a really exciting initiative for the team because this is taking the test this is the GeneType test into real clinical situations with real physicians, specialists, and a network of hospitals based primarily on the Gold Coast in Australia. The Gold Coast Private Hospital is a member of the HealthScope group of hospitals, the largest private hospital group in Australia, running 38 different hospitals and employs 19,000 people. So a successful pilot here could lead to an expansion not only across the HealthScope network, but the private health systems around the world. So this is a really exciting milestone for us and the team. And patient recruitment has already started, and this precision medicine pilot will be between January and April in 2024.
Simon, earlier this year, you announced the development of the world's first hereditary breast and ovarian cancer test. When can we expect that launch?
Yeah, so in February in 2023, we announced that we would develop a hereditary breast and ovarian cancer, which looks at the monogenic disease of, say, BRCA1, BRCA2, and 13 other genes, combined with the genetic tests of gene types breast cancer and ovarian cancer, which looks at the SNPs, and the patented clinical risk test in one simple saliva test. That's been developed. We've run our first tests through our laboratory in the United States, and it's ready for launch in the coming month or so. We're really focused on getting that delivered in the calendar year of 2023. So it was presented to a group of specialists in California about 2 weeks ago, and 50 physicians joined the team for that particular soft launch there into the United States. So this is something that's really exciting. So 5% of breast cancer is linked to the monogenic component, 10% is linked to the family history, and 85% is random or sporadic. The exciting thing about this test is that we can cover all aspects of that in one simple saliva-based test, and we're really excited to be launching that to the US market very, very soon.
Simon, Genetic Technologies has been active in the release of peer-reviewed publications. Can you share how important this is in the industry and perhaps reflect on some recent publications?
This is critical to the utility or the implementation in clinics of our tests, because the physicians want the underlying science to be proven so that they have the confidence that what they're giving their patients is absolutely the best in class in the world. So the clinical validity, or the peer-reviewed manuscripts and the peer-reviewed publications, are absolutely critical for our peers to pressure test and really test our science, and then those manuscripts get published. So in the last 12 months, our science team have done an outstanding job in publishing and having peer-reviewed 9 manuscripts across a variety of different diseases for our particular gene type test. More recently, there was one on pancreatic cancer, and we know how deadly that particular disease is. We know that 9%, once diagnosed, will last 5 years or survive 5 years. We know that early detection will allow early intervention and give those people an opportunity to live longer. So we also know that 76% of people will die within 12 months of diagnosis. So that's why this particular test is so important, because it proved that our test will identify 50% more at-risk patients than the current standard of care. And that, for physicians, is game-changing for early detection and survival rates of this sinister disease, which is pancreatic cancer.
Genetic Technologies was recently awarded a grant and named a national research partner for a trial that could change the way risk is assessed and reshape the standard of care in general practice. Talk to us about the grant and the trial and what they could ultimately mean.
So this is a really exciting clinical trial that we are the sole industry partner in. This is a clinical trial on cancer screening in general practice, and it was a grant that was given $2.4 million and a patient cohort of about 800 patients in general practice, where they will screen for a variety of different cancers using the gene type test. Why this is so important and why this is so exciting is that this particular test could reshape the entire standard of care and the way we screen for cancer detection at the primary care physician or general practice around the world. So this is done in conjunction with the University of Melbourne and Professor John Emery, and as the sole industry partner, we're exceptionally excited that they are using our test, our technology, our patented technology, and the saliva test to screen for these serious cancers.
Simon, management is key to the success of any company and especially of smaller cap companies. Who are some of the key players on your team?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. People are the foundation and the essence of any successful organization. We've moved our business and transitioned in many ways in the last 18 months from an R&D science-driven organization into a commercialization entity. We've appointed some very, very senior physicians and clinicians and commercial team members in the United States. We've expanded that to some senior marketing people, senior commercial people, senior medical people, senior scientists, all based in the US, all poised to drive the growth of the organization and identify those key revenue drivers for a pathway to profitability for our organization over the coming 18 months.
In summary, Simon, what is the essential value proposition? Why should investors take an interest in genetic technologies today?
So we are a leader in personalized predictive genomics, empowering individuals to take control of their health. We've got some of the most exciting cutting-edge clinical trials happening right now in pilots, in hospitals, and general practice, proving the clinical utility of this test. The market opportunity for this test is global. The opportunity for us to have an addressable market across populations of people who are 30 plus is enormous. And this organization is poised for incredible growth over the course of the next 18 months. And we are absolutely excited by that.
And we are too. Very great. Thank you for sharing your fascinating story with us once again, Simon.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Now, to get more information on genetic technologies, visit genetechinfo.com. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. We also have a free weekly newsletter you can subscribe to at redchip.com, featuring emerging growth companies like Genetic Technologies. In addition to our newsletter, you can also order your copy of Small Stocks, Big Money. This is a book written by RedChip CEO, featuring interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Order your copy at Amazon.com today for just $18. Now let's move on to our next interview today with BioVie.
Hello there. Today we have Cuong Do, President and CEO of BioVie, which trades on the NASDAQ under the ticker symbol BIVI. Cuong, thanks once again for being with us.
Craig, thank you so much for having me back. It's great to be here.
We love having you. Can you begin, Cuong, by discussing the recent phase 3 data from your Alzheimer's trial? What were the key findings and what do they mean for the future development of your lead candidate, NE3107?
Yes, Craig, we recently unveiled top-line data from our trial, phase 3 trial, and we actually were very encouraged by the results. So it shows that we have a very biologically active molecule that appears to be having an effect on the cognitive, functional, and biomarker endpoints that we looked at in the trial. So to start off, our primary endpoint is something called CDR-SB, right, which is a measure of cognitive and function. And we showed that after 6 months of treatment, patients treated with 3107 had a 68% slowing of cognitive decline compared to those who were treated on placebo. Now, to kind of give you a reference point, the FDA-approved drug Leqembi showed that it slowed cognitive decline by 27% after being treated for 18 months. Right, so admittedly, this is not an apples-to-apples comparison, but it gives us great comfort to believe that we have a very effective drug, not only because we saw this impact on CDR-SB, but we saw it on all of the other functional and cognitive assessments we measured as well as it showed impact on the biomarkers that we would want to see. It reduced inflammation, there was an impact on p-tau, on amyloid beta, and importantly, it showed a reduction of DNA methylation, right, such that those that were treated had an age deceleration advantage of over 4.5 years compared to those that were on placebo. So terrific results. We also, unfortunately, had a bit of a setback in this trial. Due to suspected misconduct at 15 of our clinical sites, we ended up having to exclude a good number of patients because we were not comfortable with the data that came out of these sites. So as a result of that, we referred these sites on to the FDA for their investigation. But in the meantime, we missed statistical significance in our trial. So we now have to continue enrolling some additional patients to bring the trial to statistical significance, which is a shame for the company, for the community, Alzheimer's community, but it shows an efficacy signal that we are very encouraged with.
Turning a moment to neuroinflammation, NE3107 is the only inhibitor of neuroinflammation and insulin resistance currently in phase 3 clinical trials for Alzheimer's. Could you explain how this unique approach has the potential to address the key drivers of cognitive decline in Alzheimer's?
Well, we believe inflammation is the starting point for many things that go wrong in the body, including Alzheimer's and other age-related disorders. And as it turns out, we lucked into this molecule that works the way that it does. We did not set out to design this molecule. It turns out that it blocks something called ERK activation, right? And so through a very unique mechanism, it blocks inflammatory ERK, and therefore it prevents the production of TNF-alpha. And without TNF-alpha, you do not get insulin resistance. Without TNF-alpha, you do not get the production of something called the amyloid precursor protein, which leads to more amyloid plaques. Without TNF-alpha, you do not get the phosphorylation of tau to make it p-tau. Right, so these are all things that are important in Alzheimer's, and we block it, and that's part of the reason we believe we saw the results that we did.
How big is the market opportunity for NE3107, Kong?
We believe the market opportunity is quite large. Time will tell, of course, but given that there are 6 million Americans that's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and if we reach a modest 15% penetration and price NE3107 comparable to what the competitors have priced their products at, this could become a $30 billion product in the United States alone.
Kong, let us shift our focus now to Parkinson's. You previously reported that patients treated with NE3107 and levodopa saw significant improvements, especially those younger than 70 years of age. Could you elaborate on these results and what is next for your Parkinson's program?
In Parkinson's trials, patients are evaluated something called the UPDRS, the Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale. And those patients that were treated with levodopa and 3107 and were younger than 70 years old had a 6-point advantage compared to those treated with placebo and levodopa alone. Right? So that is a huge advantage. But what makes us really excited is what happens first thing in the morning. As you may know, Parkinson's patients often take their medications when they went to bed, and the overnight levodopa tends to wear off, so that in the morning, these patients have stiff muscle, that their muscles are not on. And as a result, they cannot get out of bed in the morning. And what happened is that those that were treated with 3107 and levodopa were able to get out of bed in the morning. About a third of our treated subjects were able to get out of bed, whereas none of the levodopa alone were able to. And that is a very statistically significant and exciting finding that we look forward to take forward. And going forward, we will be conducting a new phase 2b/3 to develop NE3107 alone as first-line therapy, monotherapy, to address the biggest unmet need, which is the morning muscle symptoms on mode, right? And that's what we're looking forward to start next year.
Let's turn now to liver disease, another area where BioVie is active. Your drug, BIVI 201, is the only drug currently in development for refractory ascites, a terrible condition that has a 50% mortality rate. And of course, there are no approved drugs for refractory ascites in the United States. What's the potential for BIVI 201 to change this narrative?
Ascites is a horrible condition. It is end-stage liver disease, and it gets to a point where the liver and the kidney is not able to clear the fluid as it normally does, or process fluid the way it normally does. So as a result, fluid accumulates in the abdomen. And so clinicians originally resort to using diuretics just to flush through the fluid because there's no approved treatment for ascites. And patients do initially get some symptomatic relief, but because nothing has been done to address why the fluid accumulates in the first place, these patients constantly have to come back, right? And after they become refractory to diuretics, all you can really do is put a large bore needle into the abdomen and physically remove that fluid, which is horrible, right? And that's the only treatment objective at this point, is to hopefully keep the patients alive long enough so they can qualify for a liver transplant. And as we all know, there are just not enough livers to go around, and that's why we have a 50% mortality rate. BIV201 is a novel formulation of terlipressin. And what we do is we stick it up to a slow drip infusion pump and slowly drip the drug in over the course of 24 hours. And the treatment is for 28 days. And we had a phase 2 trial running that we terminated early. We terminated this trial halfway through because the data statistically showed that those treated with 3107 had dramatically lower buildup of ascites fluid. So we've been in discussions with the FDA for some time now, and we are very, very close on agreeing for the design of the phase 3 on how to bring this thing forward. And because we have fast track and orphan designation, we only need to do one phase 3 trial, and we believe that's going to be a relatively small, relatively short trial. So hopefully within the next couple of years, there will be a new option out there for patients who face this horrible condition.
Kong, that is very encouraging data, again, from the phase 2B study of your BIV201. Let's elaborate just a bit more because it's very exciting. What are your expectations as you initiate those discussions with the FDA for that pivotal registration trial?
The FDA has been very, very helpful in helping us design this trial. So our hope is to finalize the design of the trial. We then hope to enter into what's called an SPA, which basically lays out the agreement between us and the FDA on if we achieve X, Y, or Z in the trial, we will automatically be approved when the time comes, right? And so that will take its course over the next few months because nothing is ever very, very fast, right? So things will take its time. So we're hoping to go through the SPA process over the course of the next few months and then launch the new phase 3 trial, hopefully by the middle of next year.
Kong, what is the essential value proposition? Why should investors take an interest in BioVie right now?
I believe BioVie has one of the most exciting portfolios in biotech today. In NA3107, we believe we may have what could become the first truly effective drug for Alzheimer's when it's developed. Also, in Parkinson's, we believe NA3107 could become the first new therapy since the advent of levodopa over 5 decades ago. And in BIV201, it could become the first treatment ever to treat ascites, which is a condition, it's a terrible condition, that has 50% mortality rate within 12 months. And I believe we are a great buying opportunity at this point, given how our shares have been beaten down this past week, given the disappointment with the phase 3 Alzheimer's trial. And for it seems like the first time ever, I am no longer in possession of material non-public information. So I was able to purchase shares of my own company for the first time ever this past week, right when the lawyers cleared it. So I believe we represent a great buying opportunity. We represent a great innovative company that will bring in tremendous medications to humankind in the course of the next couple of years.
That is a great update, Kong, and great to hear that you're buying shares in your own company. Thank you for sharing your story with us today.
All right, thank you, Craig, for having me.
Now to get more information on BioVie, visit BIVIinfo.com. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. We also have a free weekly newsletter you can subscribe to at redchip.com featuring emerging growth companies like BioVie. In addition to our newsletter, you can also order your copy of Small Stocks, Big Money. This is a book written by RedChip CEO featuring interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Order your copy at Amazon.com today for just $18. Now let's recap the companies you met today. First, you met Genetic Technologies, stock symbol GENE on the NASDAQ. Genetic Technologies is executing a B2B commercialization strategy for its flagship gene type multi-risk test, covering breast cancer, colorectal cancer, prostate cancer, ovarian cancer, coronary artery disease, and type 2 diabetes. This is a first-class test that can predict a person's risk and up to 70% of annual mortalities and morbidities before onset. Genetic Technologies' expanding product portfolio includes more than 50 risk assessment tests in 14 test categories covered by 25 patents granted and 9 patents pending. Learn more at genetechinfo.com. Then you met BioVie, stock symbol BIVI on the NASDAQ. BioVie recently reported positive data from its Alzheimer's phase 3 trial showing patients treated with NE3107 had improved performance compared to placebo on all cognitive and functional assessments commonly used. BioVie plans to continue enrollment for its phase 3 Alzheimer's trial, and they are expected to report interim data readouts from its planned phase 3 study in Parkinsons in coming months. This trial could ultimately lead to FDA approval as early as 2024. Learn more at BIVIinfo.com. Again, if you have any questions about any of the companies featured on today's show, call us at 1-800-REDCHIP or email us at info@redchip.com. In closing, remember, while small caps can provide significant gains, you must be prepared for the downside. Small cap stocks are among the most volatile asset class. Some of the companies featured on this show are RedChip client companies, and we may own stock in these companies. So please always read our disclosures at redchip.com. Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you next week with some new exciting emerging growth company.